Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Trust and Believe. I'm your host, Shaun T, and today is a cut up. But we also going to talk about some very important things. We're going to school you on what it was like to grow up in the earlier pandemic, the HIV/AIDS epidemic. We're also going to talk about how race and sexuality affects your growth. I have an incredible guest today. His name is LZ Granderson. But I'm just tell y'all right now, buckle your seatbelts and strap in because it gets all the way real. We going to the gay club.
Somebody say hell yeah!
What's up? He's better than Oprah.
Come on, y'all!
This is Shaun T, and it's time to trust and believe.
So before I even met you through our friend Brian at a wedding, so I just want to let y'all know I met LZ at a wedding. He was officiating a wedding of Brian and Bill, our friends. But anyway, before I met you, I knew of you. You know what I mean? You have a big personality. I was always kind of fascinated by your hair, which is why one of the reasons why I don't have my dreads in now. But we got a lot of lock extensions. But you just have a big personality, a big
you.
smile. You literally live out loud. So where does it come from? Because we all have a story, and we all have like kind of this coming of age story. And I see you, especially when I see you on the commentating tennis and seeing you in these roles, but then I also know you personally, and I just love how you're able to marry it together. But I just want to know what is the coming of age story of you?
First of all, thank you for those really kind words. I was a huge fan of yours before Brian's wedding. And so when I saw you there, I was like, this bitch knows Shaun T ain't tell me shit. He ain't tell me shit. I was like, B got you in the cut and didn't tell me a damn thing. I
The
was like,
cut.
he be trying to keep his black friends separated. I was like, I
Well, it's
see how
funny
you do
because
it.
I met him through Scott. So I was, a huge fan of tennis, and he was like, "Oh, I have a friend, Brian Vahaley, whatever." And it was really cool because he told me kind of Brian's coming out story. Because, as a professional tennis player, you don't hear of anyone coming out or being gay. I was one of his hidden ones.
Hidden gems, if you will.
One of those caramel gems, honey. Okay.
So funny. So funny. So you ask, where does it come from? And I think at the heart of it, it's just an appreciation that I'm still here, man, to be
Mm,
quite honest with you. Like,
mm.
I don't want to go like deep, deep, deep
Go
into like,
deep. This is trust and believe. Go deep.
all right, well, like I've attempted suicide multiple times, right?
Mm,
I've been shot at.
mm,
The first time I was mugged in Detroit, I wasn't even in kindergarten yet. And it was a
mm.
grown man and it was at knife point. Like, like I've had a lot of trauma. And let's just say life presented me with a lot of opportunities to tap out.
Mm,
And, a couple times I tried to take life up on it, but God had other plans. And it really was just a coming to terms with this idea, and I had this idea before I saw other people express it beautifully. But essentially the idea was God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, and throughout life, particularly once I got into college, I was constantly being reminded of that in different ways. Sometimes it'd be a different way it was being phrased, right? Like my struggles were preparing me in order to have my triumphs, and things of that nature. And so I'm almost 50, man. This body has kept me alive through not one but two global pandemics between HIV AIDS and now obviously, COVID. This body didn't get shot, though they tried to get me. This body, has been through a lot and we're still here. And so I try to keep that in mind. So even though and you know me, you know my work, I take the issues that I write about and comment on very seriously. And I take the work very seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously.
I take you seriously, even when we being crazy, because I'm just like, I'm so inspired by your freedom of expression. And like I said, when I see you doing your work, you're still you. Yeah, you'll get the point across. And but you still you're your authentic self, and I think that's really great. So my friend Chip posted yesterday a reel about how gay men can't donate blood. Or I went
Hmm.
back to the day where we couldn't donate blood. And then it made me
Yep.
start thinking about the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And there's a lot of people who may have never watched Paris is Burning. They may have
Mm.
never watched documentaries on the struggle of that pandemic. And so, just briefly, I would love for you to school people on what it was like during that pandemic, especially when it was gay men being discriminated against as we were trying to find our way through.
In a lot of ways, I'm here because of decisions my mother made for me. And this is what I mean. And I'm sure you're going to appreciate it because you have a performing arts background as well. Um, I danced most of my life up until like 18, 19 years old. Like was professionally trained, classically trained dancer. It's really, really complicated because I also sold drugs on the side. So it's like I'm like all the stuff and none of the stuff at the same time. It's like
He
really,
was
really
like, "Let me
crazy.
give you a pirouette real quick. Hold on, let me run to the corner.
Let me run
I'll
to the
be
corner.
back."
Right. It was the reason why I was able to dodge those bullets because I was able to get the VA out the way.
My
Um,
VA. It's a different
it's
kind of duck. Anyway.
it's exactly.
Oh man.
um, and so I got accepted into the Alvin School of Dance coming out
Wow.
of college. Judith Jamison basically handpicked me, if you will. She came to our school. My dance instructor had been friends and associates of hers in the past. She came in, taught this huge workshop, and I auditioned and I got in. So, so I was thinking I was going to go to New York and be a professional dancer, graduating from college in 1990. Which, as you know, Alvin School of Dance is in New York City. We know what 1990 was like during the height of the AIDS epidemic. And my mom um, basically said, no, you are not going to New York. And now at the time, I was closeted and wasn't really exploring, that aspect of my sexual orientation. I was sleeping with girls, but I really wasn't sleeping with guys. But I was cognizant that there was some same sex attraction there. And I was also cognizant of the fact that I wasn't naturally sleeping with women. Like, so I was aware of a little bit of the mind game and the work that I had to do to maintain this
To
heterosexual sort
perform.
of presentation, though I didn't have the vocabulary for it.
Mm.
My mom saying no to me going to Avenue School of Dance probably saved my life. You know,
Wow.
closeted, gay black boy being dropped into New York. Um, I would have slept around. I Based upon the way I slept around in college, I know I would have slept around in New York. I definitely probably would have been at high risk of contracting HIV/AIDS at like 18 years old. And given where we were in terms of medications and et cetera, and where the science was, there's a good chance I may not be here. So, in a lot of ways, my relationship with the HIV/AIDS crisis was avoided because of my mother. However, I was still very much aware of the discrimination that gay men in particular faced in the heart of the pandemic. And I did lose my mentor and very, very close friend, Tony, to HIV/AIDS. I was in college. I had accepted a dance scholarship to Western Michigan. So I was in school still for dance, just not in New York, but I was in Michigan. And I get a phone call and I'm told that Tony's in the hospital and that he's dying. And we never discussed his sexual orientation when I was younger. And I had known Tony for, I want to say, a good 10 years at this point. And as I said, he was my mentor. He was one of the dance instructors at the school. And then I got of age and good enough. I was able to perform with him on stage with this dance company back in Detroit. And so I loved him a great deal. And he invested a lot of time and energy into my life. And when he died, it was just, and it still is, I can feel myself, getting emotional because
Mm.
he was supposed to have been, you know, my Mr. Miyagi. You know, he was
Mm.
supposed to let me know what to avoid and what not to avoid, and he was supposed to have been the one that told me, "No, you don't want to go out with that one," or he was the one supposed to tell me I was being messy,
Right.
and I, you know, I lost him and
Mm.
had to kind of figure out a lot of that stuff on my own as many of us Gen Xers did. A lot of Gen Xers, people who were just coming of age, 17, 18, 19 years old in the 80s and into the 90s. We're the Gen Xers that lost all that wisdom. And I think about that a lot when I try to mentor and be a good mentor to LGBTQ youth, from the millennial generation or Generation Z.
So back in the day, in New York City, they used to have the balls. And so all of what you see now, these Victoria's Secret fashion shows, the way people walk down a runway, all of it, the Beyoncés of the world, that all came from gay black culture in New York City and Latino culture in New York City back in the day. So they used to have these houses that would show up to the ball. So the houses were made up of basically drag queens or whomever, whatever they identified themselves as at the time. And they would have these houses and it'd be the mother of the house. And so even though this person may have only been like maybe 5 or 7 years older, all of the people that lived in that house under her were her children. And so
Mhm.
this matriarch of the house became the, I guess the best way to say is just the mentor, kind of like you explained, it became the mentor. And so in New York City, that's how it was. But we all, and listening to you, we all had that mentor that
Yes.
kind of like helped us through. So mine was a gentleman by the name of Bill Myers. He was my mentor in college, and from my Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity chapter. And so, and he was just like such a profound figure. He didn't pass away of HIV; he passed away of a heart attack, but
Mm.
he kept us. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be very upfront. He kept my legs closed. Okay, like he's the one that saved my life. Like he's the one that's like, here's the condom, here's this. Like he
Wow.
took us and he took all the gay brothers and was like, listen, y'all, like y'all gonna have to keep it together. But anyway, I just wanted to explain to people that in that
That
show
is
Pose,
amazing.
and it happened to all of us, just like in different ways.
That is absolutely amazing. Shout out for you for being an alpha, by the way. You know what? I should have known because you have Kappa energy because you're a pretty boy.
What the shade of it
What?
all?
No, there's no shade in being a pretty boy. What's
Oh,
wrong with
not a
you?
kappa, not a kappa, not a kappa.
Well, listen, you're the one throwing the shade. I'm just saying, I thought you were one because you little light skinned pretty boy. That's what we knew the Kappas to be.
Ooh, I love that you're giving these kids some black culture today. Yes, I was always called a pretty boy because I was younger, and I'm even for this is my real skin tone if you're watching this on uh, YouTube, but I was always very very light skinned as a kid. Like
Hmm.
I had red hair. My son, one of my sons has red hair, uh, blondish hair, and yeah, I was called a pretty boy, and
See,
I guess. But
see, but
the Kappas on my campus were actually darker skinned. They weren't the
really,
super lights. The alphas were considered like we were considered on my campus. We were considered scholarly and
right?
somewhat attractive.
No, I mean Dr. King was an alpha, so
I do know that. I do know that. Anyway, so I cut you off because I wanted to tell people about mentors. But so you had this mentor. You're
so
going
this,
through college.
yes, yes, and he passed away, and I don't know if that triggers something in me or not, but I definitely found myself on a path of evangelical Christianity. And that's how I
Mm.
ended up, on the path of, eventually marrying a woman and trying to pray the gay away. And again, I don't know if it was strictly because of Tony's passing, but I gotta assume it was a factor in my decision to not only just remain closeted, but really kind of run to something that I thought was going to protect me from what I thought being gay meant.
Let's explain to people what it's like to live that life. Because I think that this answer will help people who don't quote unquote agree with gay or they think that it's a choice. I think it'll help them understand like the struggles you go through when you're trying to live that life is not something you ask for. So what was that like?
It was hard. I mean, it was. I mean, there's no other way to say it. When you don't have anyone out in your life. And as I said, Tony was in my life, but he wasn't out. We never discussed any issues dealing with sexual orientation or gender presentation or anything like that. And I was very young, and I think he was being very careful, smartly so,
Mm,
not to get those conversations going with someone who was a minor, because that probably would not look right to a lot of people on the outside looking in, right? Even though he was
right.
just being a mentor for me. So we never had those discussions. And so I never really had a mentor who was out, and I didn't really know anyone who was out. The only person I knew who was even gay was Billy Crystal's character from Soap. Like, and yet that was it. Now good thing, Billy was cute back in the day. So I was like, all right, well, I can look at this.
You got married. Had you at that time ever experienced with a man before?
When I was married, yeah. Yeah,
Before
yeah.
you were married.
Right. Before I was married, yeah,
Okay.
I don't remember necessarily enjoying the relationship or the experimentation, because those days were filled with complete fear and anxiety. And so when I think about, the interactions that I had with men sexually or with young boys, myself being a young boy sexually, it wasn't like a discovery period. It was a period of a lot of fear and anxiety for me. Constantly knowing that it's wrong, constantly worried I'm going to get caught, constantly worried that I wouldn't be able to play sports,
Mm,
because you got to remember there aren't any openly gay professional athletes. You know, I'm growing up, I'm watching Billy Sims, running back for Detroit Lions, Isaiah Thomas, like these are my heroes, and playing basketball in the hood, you damn sure can't show any sort of perceived weakness in your masculinity.
not to mention you're what, like 6'4"?
I'm 6'2", and I shot up to 6'2", I think, like by my sophomore year in high school. So I was
It's
always like,
crazy.
so I'm always like the big kid on the court anyway. And I had game. Don't forget that part. Like,
Let's not get it twisted,
uh,
okay? Let's
all
not get
right.
it twisted.
In fact, I shouldn't even be using past tense. I still got game. All right. Using past tense. Like that
Yes,
shit's
come
gone.
on.
No. But I played all the time. And so in my head, I couldn't be gay because I was a good basketball player. And I
Mm,
couldn't be gay because while people were using, slurs in school, they weren't necessarily directed towards me. So that means that I was passing, right? So
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
in my head, like nothing was making sense. And so by the time I got to college and became an evangelical Christian, that made all the sense in the world to me that I was being attacked by the devil. And that's the reason why my mind was conflicted and that things weren't clear. It was because the
Mm,
devil was attacking me. It wasn't until I came out and really started going to therapy and finding a church home that didn't demonize who I was but actually validated who I was, that I realized my head wasn't confused because the devil was under attack, was attacking me. My head was confused because society was sending conflicting messages. Society was saying things like, oh well, you're going to go to hell, but our choir director can be gay.
right.
You're going to go to hell, but we're not going to acknowledge all of the LGBTQ people who were an essential element of the Harlem Renaissance that helped guide us through that period in American history.
Yes.
And then when I really get turned on is when I found out that Bayard Rustin organized the March on Washington. And so I was like going, so I'm going to hell, but the person who organized the most significant protest rally in the history of this country was openly gay, and Dr. King knew about it.
Right.
The Reverend Dr. King Jr. knew about it. So I'm sitting here like going, oh, well, it's not the devil that's attacking me, it's society that's attacking me. That's why I'm confused. And once I was able to sort of get that kind of clarity, Sean, life was a lot better. I was no longer in conflict with myself,
Mm,
and I learned to forgive myself easier, and I learned to love myself more, and I understood the importance of suspending or offering grace for other people, because I knew where I was at that time. And so it just kind of informed the way that I interact with people who might be homophobic or who might feel like they can't come out or whatever their presence happens to be. And I think, like we're very similar in that having that empathy and having grace allows you to be a really good listener and podcast host.
Yeah. Thank you.
You host a wide variety of people on your podcast. What we do over at ABC with Life Out Loud, thank you very much for being a guest. I can't wait for people to hear your
Yes, I
episode.
can't either.
It's so freaking good. Um, but when people begin to share their truths, you're able to have these conversations with them because you've taken the time to do the work yourself to understand your own truths.
You were talking about having to come out and having to live this life and being in the church and everybody's gay, but nobody's talking about it. But we as gay people, we as black people, and I mean gay people, black people, all the filtering to everyone in the world. Like I say in my book, everybody's in the closet about something. I think that culturally, specifically with black gay men in the church, while we are the ones up there singing, honey, and we're the one choreographing the praise
Come
dances
on
at the
now.
same time. We're the ones that's, the ones that's going to be in fire and brimstone, honey.
Mm,
Okay, so let's get it. Let's so we can create all this amazingness for you. We're helping the pastor help you put those tithes and offerings in the plate so he can have a house and a roof over his head. But we the ones that's going to hell. I'm gonna kind of skip ahead a little bit.
okay.
So I need to know how a gay, loud black man worked his way up in mainstream media.
I think the hardest part of getting to where I am is knowing how much further I would have been had people not tried to hold me back for being gay. Like I still, and I shouldn't do this, and I'm trying not to do this more and more. It's like one of the things that I'm working with my therapist about. But there are times in which I'm angry. Damn right I'm angry because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this dude's an idiot, and y'all are paying him what to say what to do what. Meanwhile, I was told repeatedly that I wasn't being hired by sports departments specifically because I was gay. I was being told this straight up. This is the 90s. This is the 90s. This is when we were kicking people out of the military for being gay. So let's not act as if, what I'm saying, is so full of hyperbole. It is not. We know for a fact people were losing their jobs for being gay, teachers losing their jobs just for being gay. So I was not hired by a number of sports departments because I was openly gay. And so by the time I actually got my footing at ESPN, which was 17, 18 years ago, I was already in my 30s. Whereas perhaps if I wasn't, being, denied, not because of my talent or because of, the hard work I'd put in, but simply because of my sexual orientation, who knows? I might have been at ESPN in my 20s, right? So there's that what if and how the discrimination impacted that what if that I wrestle with from time to time. And again, I know I shouldn't, and you can't look back and you know all that good stuff. But I'm just being real with where I'm at in life. But with that being said, God has blessed me too, man. Like really, really blessed me. There was a point, Sean, I was in love with this dude in Chicago. You couldn't tell me shit about him, and so I was trying to get this job in Chicago, and I would apply at the Chicago Sun Times. I would apply at the Chicago Tribune. Every single newspaper in the Chicagoland area, I tried to get a job at, and none of them would hire me. Like none of them hired me. None of them
Mm.
hired me, and it was so frustrating because I was like, if I can just get a job in Chicago, then we'll be together. And da 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 da. Child, he broke up with me
Oh
in the
no.
most scandalous of ways. Fast forward a few years later, I'm working at CNN. I'm at ESPN. I'm, doing well with my life. I run into this guy back in Chicago. You know what he said to me?
No.
Had I known you were going to really be famous, I would have never broken up with you.
And that was supposed to make you feel better?
That was supposed to be a compliment. Now, here, let me tell you how God works, though, man. Let me tell you
Lord,
how God works.
tell
Because
me.
when I first saw him, I was like, my heart fluttered a little bit because those feelings were still, I buried them, but they weren't dead. So I
Right.
saw him, I was like, oh man, he's still cute, blah, 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 blah. I was like, I wonder how he's doing. That was the first thing out of his mouth. And I was like, that's how he's doing. About the same.
And you're like, "I dodged a bullet."
I was like, I dodged a bullet.
Because you would have never been worth anything if you are considered a material thing.
All of that has a point to the larger conversation, which is you asking me how did I make my way up and me wrestling with, the discrimination that I felt. I also am reminded of, something that the great Rascal Flatts sung about, which is the broken road led me straight to you. And the path that I was on, the heartache, the heartbreaks, the job denials, the position denials, all of that prepared me for where I am right now in media and where I am right now in life. And you know what I thought I needed, I actually just wanted, and God, thankfully was busy preparing the road that I needed to be on while keeping me off the road that I thought I should be on or that I wanted to be on because of I wanted prestige or I wanted that guy or I wanted to live in that city. Like a lot of things didn't pan out for me that I thought were obstacles when really they weren't for me, you know? And that guy wasn't for me. That job in Chicago wasn't for me. Living in Miami wasn't for me. What I was presented and what eventually came to be may not necessarily have been hand in hand, but it was exactly what I needed when I needed it. So I tried to like keep that in mind, even though when I was going through those periods of discrimination, Sean, it was incredibly frustrating. Like obviously, you start asking yourself, why did I bother coming out? Um, you see others getting credit for the work that you've done.
Knowing that you could do this incredible work and knowing that you've been discriminated against, was there ever a time where you felt like you were only given the job because you were black and or because you were different and how did that make you feel?
I never felt that way.
Mm,
I, I never felt that I was given a job because I was gay or because I was black, but I always felt that people looked at me that way.
I just never like kind of experienced like, well, we have to fill this slot because of their ethnicity or because of diversity and inclusion. And I've always wanted to ask somebody that. But in the same breath, you also said that you felt they looked at you as that and not just as like this incredibly talented person, you know?
And that's not unique to me or you or a lot of people who are, especially, racially minorities, but just sort of minorities in general. Having people look at you and you're wondering whether or not they're looking at you genuinely or with this view of sympathy because they think that you're just a diversity hire
Mm,
and you don't truly deserve to be where you are. I think a lot of us and women talk about this dynamic a lot, having this imposter syndrome, right? Where
hmm.
because they are unique in a space, there's this feeling that you don't belong there and that you're somehow pretending to be something that you're not. And when it came to the topics in the areas of politics as well as sports, like I've been covering politics, since the 90s.
Wow.
You know, and
Wow.
I had been a sports fan since the 70s. Like decades and decades of time and work, and more importantly, interest in these areas that I'm in today. And yet, you can feel when people don't necessarily think you belong, and you begin to, theorize why they may harbor those feelings. And obviously, the conversation of quotas and diversity hires come up, and there's a little bit of imposter syndrome that can creep up. But just like you, like you're extremely talented,
Thank
like
you. Oh my gosh,
and
that's so kind.
inspirational, and you worked your ass off and you earned where you are in this world. And yet there would be people who would discount all of that hard work, all of that talent, and say, well, you're just this because of that. And you know what? They are searching for reasons why they're not there.
Mm. Or
And
they're
it
not
may
fulfilled
make
where
them
they want to be. Yeah.
right. And it may make them feel better to say, It's not that I didn't work hard enough or that I wasn't talented enough. It was because they're handing out opportunities to other people for other reasons. And that would
Yeah.
make certain people feel better about that. But, you belong where you are. You earned it.
Thank
And I
you.
feel the
And
same
so
way
do
about me.
I was gonna say, and so do you. And
Oh,
so let's talk about current day. So let's talk about how you met your husband. We know you were married to a woman before, but let's
right.
bring you back to your side. Okay. Let's find out about him. Okay, let's get the real tea going on.
It's interesting. So we were having this conversation earlier about mentorship, right? And I was at this bar years ago because I was a volunteer at our local LGBTQ youth center. And my mentees had been begging me to meet them out at this bar to party and drink. And I never did because I never thought it was appropriate for that to happen. But some of them were graduating from college and I may not have saw them again. And so it was like, okay, sure, you know, let's hang out. And so
Yeah.
I go and I meet them there, and it's early, like it's like 8:30, because I'm not going, y'all ain't gonna have me out here late at night having people talk about me dance with children. I ain't gonna, I'm not gonna have that. So I'm at this bar like at 8:30 or something like that. And like around 8:45, 9 o'clock, this group of people walk in, and my husband Steve's among them. And I kid you not, I had a buddy with me, because again, I just wanted to make sure I had backup in case something weird happened. And so I looked and I was like, "Holy cow, that is the most handsome guy I had ever seen in my life." I brought my buddy Octavian over, to be my wingman, and the plan was, Sean, is that he was going to talk to the guys and kind of set me up, with the good-looking one that I wanted to talk to, and I was talking to the women in the group, and I was gonna hook him up because he was straight. And so
Oh,
we
see,
were gonna
that's
do
the best. People don't know about that combo though.
come on now,
People don't know
dog.
about that combo. They
Come
don't know
on.
about the gay straight combo and how powerful it is. Come
Listen,
through.
listen, we join forces, we slay the world. Y'all tripping.
Yo,
Y'all
that's what I'm
tripping.
trying. Listen, I'm looking at the camera right now to all the straight guys out there that are afraid to hang out with the gay guys. Listen, we are the best wingman. We will find your girl. We will look her up and down. We will
Dog.
feel her energy. We will tell him, LZ,
Listen,
tell him.
listen, man. Y'all tripping. I'm just saying. You can roll with dudes that you'll be in competition with, or you can roll with dudes that are gonna try and glow up for you. And
Yo, get a gay man to go out with you. Be the best wingman. Come
the
through.
best, the best. So I brought my straight buddy with me into the gay club because I was like going, yo, there are always straight women in these clubs. And if they know that you're comfortable in this environment, they might think you're gay. But once you get past that, they're like going, oh, you're cool and you're confident and you're comfortable in your own skin. And that's an attractive trait. So he was talking to the gay dude to try to make sure that when I swung over, I was good. And I was talking to the women so when we switched off, they would think he was an amazing guy. There was one problem.
Uh-oh.
My buddy Octavian and I played tennis against each other all the time, talk about sports all the time. He never really believed I was gay because of it. And so he sort of insinuated, like, I don't know, he might be gay. I don't really think he is, blah, 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 blah. Was kind of like the way he was talking. And it almost things up. When I make the handoff, he's talking to the girls, but Steve is just like, hey, how you doing? I was like, hey, I'm good. And he's like, going, well, I guess I'll talk to you later. And he just rolls. I got drunk that night. I kept drinking because I couldn't believe like he just dissed me like that. So I rolled up on him again. And I was like, yo, what's up? Like, I'm not your type. You don't like black dudes. You don't like tall dudes. You don't like what? He was like, what are you talking about? I thought you were straight. And I was like, straight? I
Oh.
was like, what do you mean straight? I'm in this gay club. My pants are tight. There's holes everywhere. Why would you think I was straight? And he was like, well, your buddy sort of said blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, fuck. He's from the Ukraine. He don't know. I ain't straight. Da, 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 da. So once we cleared up I wasn't straight, we were like smashing face 10 minutes later and the rest is
Oh,
history.
I love it. That is the best. So how long you been married?
We've been married, like legally married, like a little over 5 years.
Cool.
So
Congratulations.
basically, when the
That's
Supreme
amazing.
Court said, "All right, let's stop fucking around," that's when we went ahead and got married. But yeah, that's how we met, man. And I still wake up and I just go, damn, he just not getting fined. I thought he was fined before, but he
Yo,
actually is just
listen.
now getting fined.
See, people be sleeping because I say that about Scott. Like I've always thought Scott was like dreamy,
Oh, he
like from
is.
the moment I met
Oh,
him.
he is.
But like
Absolutely.
even now, I'm like, yo, he just turned 50 and I'm here for all of it.
Oh, I know because I follow you on Instagram.
Let's get into it.
I was like, somebody, if Stephanie Mills Feel the Fire was a person, that would be you.
You know
And
what? We're gonna have a key in the show notes so people can actually understand. But they can Google
no, no,
it.
no. You know what? You can Google or you can tune in to Life Out Loud because we actually interviewed Miss Stephanie Mills.
Oh my
And let
gosh.
me let me tell you, she brings it all. She brings
I
she
love it.
brought stuff that ABC was like going, yeah, we can't have that in the there's some colorful language here. We're gonna have to.
But I love it. You know what I love about your podcast is like you really, regardless of whether they edit things out, you are so great at getting people to just live. Like, and I
Mm,
think that that's really tough to do. Because as a professional, as a writer, as someone that's been on mainstream TV, you just have this like uncanny way of just getting people to be like, you know what? I'm going to bear it all. And just kind of like my podcast with Trust and Believe, like I dig in here to like
yes.
help people get it out and there's nothing off limits. And you're like, well, let's start out here. Let's start out here. Let's start in this free space. And I think it's just it's really great. You all have to go check out LZ show. It's
Thank you. And
incredible.
especially your episode. My producer and we talked a lot about how you were just ready to rock and roll. And I was like, he's got some stuff he wanted to say, and I'm so glad I was here for it.
Well, I think that, one of the things that I definitely hear with you, even when you tell past stories and we share this, is that we're always on a path of growth.
Mhm.
Because I think because we grew up similarly, we struggle in similar ways, we had a coming of age, you know, the pandemics that we both lived through and the fear, it's like, in a way, while it was bad, the silver lining is we're always ready. We're
Yep.
always ready to grow. We're always ready to not be afraid to be who we are because we've already hid ourselves for so long. And I think that's what people don't really understand about just the struggles that we had as black men, as gay men. It's like, just like I posted on my Instagram yesterday, I'm like, I was already in the closet. There's literally no reason for me to go back in there. And at
Right.
the same time, I'm still looking to figure out how I can grow in my current space.
I think about how what I wanted in a partner or hope to have in a partner has changed over the years too, right? Like obviously when you're young, looks have a lot to do with it. And it takes some lumps to figure out you need some other things too in order to have a successful relationship. And I'm going to bring this up because I know you understand where I'm coming from. I so thought I just had to be with a black man. And if you were black and queer between the years 1997 and maybe like 2000, I was trying to get on. I was trying to get on. And, you know, I think in a lot of ways, trying to politicize my romantic life um, was harmful in some ways, because you shouldn't be with someone to make a statement about something other than I love you. And once I moved past that sort of militarization of my romantic life, and the reason why I was so focused on being with a black man was because of the fact that, that is such a radical expression of love. It's one, it was what I knew, right? I grew up around black men, so that was a very comfortable thing. But I also was very cognizant of the fact that loving a black man, whether you were a black woman, a white woman, or another black man, was always seen as like this radical sort of expression. Like because black men were supposed to be unlovable is kind of the way that we're positioned in society, and the way that we're indoctrinated in society. We aren't supposed to be lovable people. And so I really searched high and far and had some good misses. I will say that. I had some I ain't mad at it, but not once I decided no longer that I needed to be with someone for a statement other than love, that's when love really showed up in its fullest. So it's
Even like a really interesting story that I have never really spoke about, I don't think on the podcast before, but my from ancestry.com, I found out I have a half sister,
oh wow.
and my biological father, whom I've never met before, had got a white woman pregnant in high school. And so and that her mother took her out of school. She had a baby. They gave the baby up for adoption and she went back in school. And it was because she got pregnant by a black man. And so I never knew, what number one, I never met him before, but I never knew that I had this sister until ancestry.com. And so I got this match one time, and all of a sudden I have this half sister, and it all came out that my biological father got this woman pregnant a year before he had got my mom pregnant. And I just wanted to tell that story to bring some color to it, literally, that
Hmm.
these things still happen, and they still happen.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
still
Oh,
happen.
people come for me, dog. Like I don't know if they come for you,
They come for me.
but
They
they
come
come
for
for
me.
me.
The thing that I hate, when especially gay black men come at me for being with a white man, I'm like, you are literally being exactly how you don't want people to be to us. Why do I have to why should I deny love because of the color of someone's skin?
Right.
Just like if you walk into a store and you want to shop and someone denies you the ability to shop because of the color of your skin, how is that
Right.
right? Like, why? Love has no color. And we say that love is love, but I do get that backlash sometimes of people are being like, oh well, I'm like, I had straight women call me a waste of a man because I
Oh,
was gay. And now
seriously.
I've had black gay men call me a waste of a man because I'm with a white guy. I'm like, so I can't win, but you still want to win. But you want to now discriminate against your own kind. You're doing the same thing, bruh. Come on.
Right. It's amazing how people don't see that connection there, but and especially when you start talking about like the issues that I write about, right? I write a lot about racial issues and systemic racism and things of that nature. And inevitably, people will slide into my DMs or send me these emails about, you betrayed your own race, da 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 da. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I not being clear on what I'm trying to say?
You're being clear. Their baggage and their insecurities are creeping in, and that's why they feel like they
Right.
have to comment in the way that they do.
And dropping all this stuff all over my lawn. Get your stuff out my lawn. My grass is pristine. My lawn looks fantastic. I don't need your trash. But I mean, it's like it's a real thing. And you're right. It still happens. My husband, who is white, you know, has dealt with people. Not necessarily why are you with them, but asking like, what is it like being with a black man?
Yeah.
Like
It's like,
like
child.
you're visiting a foreign country or something. I've never
Right.
been in Portugal.
I'm
What is
like,
it like? Like
it's like, it's just a human with some skin. Like, why you tripping? I always ask my guests, to define trust and believe.
to define trust and believe. For me, it is very simple. Trust and
Mm,
believe starts with letting it go. Trust and believe starts with letting it go. Whatever that it is, when you hear let it go, however you define the it, that's what it is. So for some people, it's a past hurt. For some people, it's opportunities, as I mentioned before, that were missed or were held back for them. For some people, it is, simply going on a first date after having your heart broken. You know, in order to trust and believe, you first have to let it go. So I define trust and believe by the courage it takes to move on from that it, whatever that it happens to be.
Awesome. LZ, thank you so much. I appreciate it.